Welcome everyone to the Project Megapack A330. So this has just been updated for Sim Update 5 and this is my first time making a video about it, so let's see how it works. So the plane has recently been updated to support cold and dark starts, so we'll just do the usual start routine. It's super similar to the A320, so batteries, fuel pumps, I don't do it in any particular order, I just do the stuff that I know works. Turn on the APU, turn on the APU bleed. And while that's starting up, we'll take a look at the FMC. Because this is basically a default aircraft underneath, a lot of the stuff is pre-populated for you. You can put in takeoff trim and stuff like that if you want, but it doesn't really make too much of a difference because, like I say, default aircraft, 95% of it is already done for you. With that stuff complete, we'll head up to the MCP and just literally set our initial altitude, turn the flight directors on. You can see that it's in managed mode already. A few little tweaks, you turn the NDs to your liking, so the APU is now available, we can start up the engines. As always, engines to ignition, start the right one first. So weirdly this doesn't support my Thrustmaster throttle for the engine start process, but I think that's because I've got it set up for the A32NX. Apparently this does have a compatibility patch for the A32NX, but it only works with the stable A32NX patch, which doesn't work with Sim Update 5, so whatever, I'm just using the standard Project Megapack 330 here, staying away from any kinds of additional mods because it's just a nightmare with all the updates. So this is both the engines started, we can turn the dial back to normal and we can switch off the APU bleeds and the APU now that the engine bleeds and everything are up. I'm just going to do the lights here. Strobes, beacons, navs, tidy up stuff like the seatbelt signs, anti-ice, window heat, all that good stuff, so we pretty much are ready for flight. Heading back to the main panel, just do a few bits and pieces here. So set up the auto brake to max, this is where you'd arm your spoilers. I forgot on this run, but this is where you'd arm your spoilers and set your flaps for takeoff, which we've just done here. A nice straightforward taxi out to the runway, and as soon as we're on the runway we just set the throttles to flex and off we go. Another slight complaint here, the flex detent on this plane doesn't exactly match the flex detent on the Thrustmaster Airbus throttle, but again this is basically a default aircraft. The Thrustmaster matches up the A32NX detents perfectly, so I guess this is just something to do with the fact this is based on default systems, but the detents don't line up completely. The climb detent and the idle and the toga detents are actually correct, as of the reverser functionality works just fine. So we'll rotate, gear goes up, autopilot goes on. You can see here absolutely no drama, we'll just roll the flaps off as we continue to climb, put the throttles into climb mode when it asks us to, and there's no nosediving, whatever, it just follows the plan absolutely fine like you'd expect a good default aircraft to do. Just checking we're in managed mode, which we are. Again, the managed mode is actually really good, so it will always hold 250 knots or below 10,000 feet, and then as soon as you pass through 10,000 feet it will automatically accelerate up to your cruising speed. So we're just following the default built-in ATC here, so we've got a few step climbs. As soon as we reach our final altitude, I'm going to pop down to the FMC and just revise that to match our actual cruise altitude. You can see the correct annunciator appears, which is altitude cruise when you're at your top of climb. While you're at cruise, you can fill in your approach ref, so we'll just pop in the winds for weather at our destinations. That's all good to go. You'll get an approach speed, but just bear in mind that is completely wrong. The approach speed in this is actually about 150-160 knots. You can see there's a deceleration waypoint built in as well, which is kind of cool, but that's not quite as useful as it seems, as we'll find out in a minute. So at top of descent we'll start a managed descent to our initial sort of step down altitude, and again the plane flawlessly follows that descent path and levels off nicely at our initial descent altitude of 8,000. So you'll see here a bug which the developers are aware of, which tends to happen during your descent at around 250 knots. So in managed mode it might just decide to throttle up, but it can easily be fixed by setting the speed to selected and just dialing in 250 knots yourself. But it's something the developers are aware of and are working on, and it's not really a huge deal because it usually happens during an attended phase of flight, and you can quickly correct it. Just make sure our nav radio is set here. Apparently there is a new exterior and flight deck model coming, but it looks pretty great as it is, and there's a lot of liveries already available. So we're given our approach here, so we'll go to flight plan, arrivals, we're going to choose the ILS 430 via BHX, just get that entered in the FMC. Again, you're going to see some weird bug here that seems to happen in every single plane in Flight Sim, or at least every single plane built on default systems, where once you've entered your approach, it doesn't follow it straight away. You actually have to enter direct to the first waypoint in the star, which is what we're doing here, just to correct it and get it correctly on track. It's not a showstopper, it doesn't happen at every single airport, but it does happen in every single plane. I think I've even had it happen in the A330NX, but again, it's not a huge deal. You can fairly easily correct for it just by setting that direct to your first waypoint in the star. The rest of the approach is absolutely fine, so we had a couple more step descents, we had some deceleration points, and we've rolled on the flaps to suit our approach speed. So we've hit approach, we're going localizer, glide slope towards the runway here. It follows the glide slope absolutely fine, and it will hold your final approach speeds, which in this is sort of 145 to 150 at this sort of weight. So around 300-400 feet, just disengage the autopilot, I'll fly it down, and we'll just follow the guidance to bring the throttles to idle when it tells us, and then as soon as we'll touch down, we'll activate the reversers, which do work on the Thrustmaster. Apply the brakes, bring it to a stop. So that's a successful flight from Cardiff to Birmingham, testing out the Project Megapack A330. Just a couple of minor bugs in there, one of which is sim specific, the other the developers are aware of and working on. Thank you so much for watching, I hope it was useful. Please drop a like and a subscription if you'd like to see more, and until next time, take care.